the commissioners and the directors of the Electoral Commission. We are privileged to have with us the chairperson of the Electoral Commission in the person of Mrs. Jean Mensah. She's flanked by her deputies, Dr. Bosman Erikasari, Deputy Chairman, Corporate Services, and then Mr. Samuel Tete, Deputy Chairman in charge of operations. We are also privileged to have with us here our commissioners, the commission members. We have Mrs. Hajia Sada Tumaida. We also have Mrs. Rebecca Kabuki Ajalu. And then Mr. Ebenezer Agri Finn. We are also blessed to have with us our directors, Dr. Sribo Kweko, Director, Electoral Services. Then we have Mr. Lawrence Sapong, Director, Administration. Then we have the Deputy Directors, Mr. Fred Tete. Oh, Mr. Buedu is hiding behind me. Mr. Samuel Buedu, he is in charge of human resource of the Electoral Commission. And then Mr. Emmanuel Adai, he is a lawyer by profession with the legal department of the Electoral Commission. Without much ado, can we proceed and respectfully? No. Let me go straight to the main agenda on the table by respectfully asking our chairperson, Mrs. Jean Mensah, to give us her address. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, distinguished citizens of our beloved country, Ghana, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to speak with you this evening, and I bring you warm greetings from the Electoral Commission of Ghana. This is the day our Father God has made, and we rejoice and we are glad in it. It's been a long journey, and we thank God for bringing us this far. Today marks an important day in our national calendar. It is the day that precedes the commencement of our 2020 voters registration exercise. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on Thursday, the 25th of June, 2020, the Supreme Court gave its ruling in two cases brought against the Electoral Commission. One, regarding the Commission's intended compilation of a new voters register, and the other regarding the Commission's position that existing voter ID cards should not be included in the list of eligible documentation for the registration of voters. The Supreme Court, in its ruling, directed the Commission and all its stakeholders to comply with Articles 42 and 45 of the 1992 Constitution and CI 126. By that ruling, the Supreme Court granted the Electoral Commission the authority to carry on with the compilation of the new voters register using the CI 126 and to exclude the existing voters' ID cards as identification for voters. This ruling provides the Electoral Commission with the go-ahead to commence the 2020 voters registration exercise. The exercise will begin tomorrow, 30th June 2020, and will continue until the 6th of August 2020. The registration of voters, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is a critical process in our electoral cycle. The voters register is a bedrock on which credible elections rest. It is the foundation upon which the sovereign right of a people to choose their national leaders is hinged. Therefore, in carrying out the voter registration exercise, we as a commission are mindful of the significance of the task we are undertaking. We would like to assure all of you that as a commission, our rationale for compiling a new register is not to disenfranchise any eligible voter. On the contrary, it is to ensure that all our citizens who qualify are afforded the opportunity to register and cast their votes. The Commission is of the view that only eligible citizens should have the right to determine who governs and leads our dear nation. And we are determined to ensure that no one is left behind. We deem it necessary to assure you that our decisions and actions are taken without fear or favor and without recourse to any individual or group of persons. We have a duty to our citizens to ensure that only the will of the people stands. I urge all Ghanaians to move forward with the Commission in implementing the ruling of the court. And indeed, this is the moment for all of us to move forward. It is time for us to turn our energies towards the exercise of registering voters. Let us join hands together, notwithstanding our differences, to ensure that every Ghanaian, every deserving Ghanaian of 18 years and above is able to register as a voter. Dear citizens, your participation in and monitoring of the voters' registration exercise will be critical to maintaining the integrity of the register. Please participate in the voters' registration exercise. Monitor the process at your registration centers and draw the attention of the Commission to any anomalies you might observe in the process. Together, we will arrive at a comprehensive and credible voters' register. I'll now move on to an issue of importance to the registration process. That is the question of eligible documentation for proving one's identity as a Ghanaian. Indeed, CI 126 speaks to this question. CI 126 specifies the documents that each citizen of Ghana is required to present in order to be eligible to register as a voter. The required documents are a valid passport or a national identification card issued by the National Identification Authority. CI 126 further specifies that in an event that a citizen of Ghana does not have either of the above documents, he or she must present two guarantors who must themselves have registered under the current registration process to vouch for or guarantee the identity of the said person as a citizen of Ghana. We are aware that some concerns have been raised about the issue and the use of guarantors. We wish to acknowledge these concerns. We understand that it may seem like a burden having to find two registered persons to vouch for one's identity as a Ghanaian. And yet, it seems to us to be the lesser of two evils. Although it may take a little bit more of your time and that of your guarantors, it will ensure that only persons who are Ghanaian and of 18 years old are listed on our voters' register. Guaranteeing of identity through the use of guarantors is actually not a new phenomenon in Ghana's voting procedures. This system has been with us since the beginning of our democracy, as the framers of the law anticipated situations in which Ghanaian citizens might, for legitimate and unavoidable reasons, be unable to prove or provide documentation to prove their citizenship. May I crave your indulgence, ladies and gentlemen, in presenting you with available data on the numbers of persons who have in the past been registered using guarantors as follows. In 2014, 928,540 persons were registered as voters. Of this number, 82.2% of registered voters used the guarantor system. In 2016, 1,046,067 persons were registered as voters. Of this number, 92.5 used guarantors. In the continuous registration process in 2016, 37,929 persons were registered. Of this number, 93.1% used guarantors. In the referendum of 2018, 47,852 persons were registered. 99.5% of these persons used guarantors. In 2019, the limited registration process of 2019, 1,211,395 persons were registered. 95.2% of these persons used guarantors. As you would have observed from the above numbers, my predecessors have applied this system in past voter registration processes, as they have sought to ensure that no one was disenfranchised for valid reasons beyond their control. I hope and pray that the 2020 election should be the last time that we as a country will need the guarantor system. As come 2020, all citizens should have been issued with national identification cards. Should have become routine procedure carried out at the national, district, and regional levels. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, the voters' registration exercise begins tomorrow. It begins at a time when we as a nation have not yet beaten the COVID-19 virus, nor completely curtailed its spread. The registration exercise, will require the gathering of large numbers of people. There's the risk of transmission and spread of the COVID-19 virus at these gatherings. We are aware that some of us would prefer that we wait for the end of the pandemic before carrying out our processes such as this one. Others believe that since the virus may linger into long term, we must find ways to stay safe while engaging in our normal business. The latter view seems largely to reflect the global approach to the question of when to resume normal economic and social life, but with each country adapting this approach to its circumstances. As a Commission, we have paid close attention to the signals from the government and from the Ghana Health Service, which suggests the latter approach. We have in addition held discussions with a national COVID-19 team established by the government and again the Ghana Health Service. We have taken their advice on best practice in curtailing the spread of the virus. We have thus developed the following safety regiment to be carried out at all our registration centers throughout the country. First, as has been our practice, all registration centers will be set up outdoors in open spaces. Where schools, churches, and other such venues are used as registration centers, we will not set camp inside the school or church buildings. Our registration centers will be set up in open fields and open spaces outside the school and church buildings. We will not use the school or church furniture. We will use the Electoral Commission's furniture and set up for use as registration centers. This has been our policy and practice in times past and will remain so. As an added measure, our furniture and our fittings will be continually wiped with alcohol wipes. Other COVID-19 preventive measures that will be observed at all registration centers are as follows. All people entering the registration center or queuing to enter the registration center would be required to wear a nose mask. On arrival at the registration center, every person's temperature will be taken using a thermometer gun. Persons with temperatures above 37.8 degrees Celsius will be directed to the health personnel at the registration centers or the nearest public health facility. Special arrangements will be made for them to register. The Commission will provide liquid soap and water with Veronica buckets for the mandatory washing of hands before joining the queue or entering the registration center. There will be strict adherence to physical distance of at least 1 meter in the queues at all centers. Our fingerprint scanners will be cleaned prior to the capturing of fingerprints of applicants using alcohol wipes. Hand sanitizers will be provided for the mandatory sanitizing of hands when leaving the stations. It is important to note that the Ghana Health Service has released some 7,000 health assistants to each of the registration centers nationwide. It is expected that the health assistants will assist us in ensuring strict adherence to the safety protocols outlined by the Electoral Commission. In all of these safety measures, we will rely on your cooperation, dear citizens. We believe and know that it will not be easy, but with your compliance with the above measures, we should be able to carry out all the registration procedures safely. I must mention further that special arrangements have been made for the elderly and vulnerable people during the registration exercise. All vulnerable persons, such as persons with disabilities, pregnant women, and breastfeeding mothers, the aged, that is 60 years and above, as well as the sick, will be given priority at all our registration centers. In addition, the Commission has introduced a new facility to serve the aged and the vulnerable as follows. The aged and vulnerable may go to the district offices of the Electoral Commission across the country for their registration. Additionally, they have the option of printing and filling out their forms before they go to the registration centers. This will help to speed up the registration process. It is important to emphasize that the Form 1A, which captures the biometric data, as well as the guarantee forms, can be found on our website. And the address is www.ec.gov.gh. Please note that the registration for the aged and vulnerable at our district offices starts on Thursday, the 2nd of July, 2020. A major concern a number of citizens have raised with us has to do with the quality of our temporary officers. We have recruited, trained, and deployed over 40,000 staff, indeed over 44,000 staff into the field. We are confident that the training provided them has prepared them to operate efficiently and professionally. As part of the training, we have drummed home the importance of instilling the principles of integrity, fairness, and transparency in all the activities throughout the registration process. We have also introduced a code of conduct which spells out guidelines for the activities. As part of the recruitment exercise, all temporary staff signed an oath pledging to abide by the rules and regulations governing the activities. Ahead of the registration exercise, the Commission will deploy 8,000 biometric voter registration kits into the field. The kits have been thoroughly tested, and we are confident that they will function efficiently and ensure a smooth and speedy registration of each applicant. We envisage that the robustness of the kits, as well as the extensive training offered, each applicant should not spend more than 10 minutes going through the registration process. We have deployed over 5,000 technicians to the field and set up zonal centers all across the country. These centers will be manned by our technicians, and it is expected that they will ensure a prompt and timely replacement of faulty kits in the field. We believe that with this approach, we should witness a smooth and seamless voters registration exercise. I'll now turn my attention to the mode of registration. The cluster system will be used for the voters registration exercise. A cluster consists of 5 registration centers or polling stations in a district. In total, 6,788 clusters, made up of 5 polling stations each, will be covered. This means that all 33,367 registration centers will be covered during the registration exercise. The registration will take place simultaneously in all 16 regions of Ghana. The entire registration will be undertaken in 5 phases. Each phase will span a duration of 6 days. In effect, a registration team will spend 6 days at each of the 5 centers of the cluster, thus making 30 days for each cluster. We would have an additional 6 days, which would be used for the mopping up exercise. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Commission has published the movement plan on its website and in the newspapers today. We would urge you to go onto our website and study the movement plan to enable you ascertain when the registration team would visit your registration center. Distinguished guests, it is important to emphasize at this time the transparency of our processes and to allay the fears of our stakeholders. Over the years, a number of mechanisms have been built into our processes to tighten the loose screws and to ensure transparency and accountability from the registration of voters to the declaration of results. For the purposes of this exercise, I'll focus on the transparency embedded into our registration process. Indeed, before the Electoral Commission commences any registration process, it has to provide all registered political parties with a 21 days notice of its intention to compile or update the register. This is to afford political parties the opportunity to train and assign agents to the various registration centers. The agents of the political parties remain at the registration centers from the start of the process to the end. At the beginning of each day, the Electoral Commission officer starts the machine or kits in the presence of political party agents. The kits show the date, time, and a record of the number of persons who have registered. In all cases, at the start of the day, that number is 0. At the end of each day, the kit generates a printout that gives the total number of persons who have been registered in a day. Each political party is given a copy of the printout. The Electoral Commission forwards the same copy to its database. Additionally, political parties may on their own record the number of persons who are registered per day. This enables them to confirm their own records against the printout from the Electoral Commission. Indeed, any party with this information can set up its own system to track and record the number of applicants who have been registered across the nation on a daily basis. It is important to note that the entire registration process is also monitored by various observer groups. And this year, we've seen a good number of observer groups who have shown interest in monitoring the process. We believe this will further strengthen our processes. Distinguished citizens, As a commission which believes in law and order, peace and stability, we have engaged regularly with the security agencies through the mechanism of the Election Security Task Force. We are confident that our early and regular engagements will yield positive gains and cause us to witness a peaceful and violence-free exercise. On our part, we call on all Ghanaians to work with us to ensure a peaceful registration exercise. Members of the press, dear citizens, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a rather lengthy speech, but I hope it has addressed the most important issues relating to the 2020 voter registration exercise. On behalf of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, I thank all our stakeholders, namely the leaders of our religious bodies, traditional authority, civil society, the media, and all well-meaning Ghanaians for their support over the months. I'd also like to thank all of you for your time and the opportunity to speak to you. We look forward to seeing all of you at the registration centers with your face masks firmly in place as we embark upon this all-important exercise. We will carry out this exercise efficiently and safely, God being our helper. I wish you all a blessed evening. May God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make our nation great and strong. Thank you very much for your attention.
That's why we have been able to come this far. Bible says that the horse is prepared for the day of battle, but victory comes from you, the Lord. We lift up unto you for victory in the name of Jesus. Amen. It's our prayer in the name of Jesus that even after that watched in vain, that you shall watch over us, so that we will go throughout this whole period and we will not be found with pests, infections, but we shall go and come blemished. It's also a prayer in the name of Jesus, committing the entire registration officials into your hands, O Lord. We commit the media into your hands, O Lord. We commit the entire citizenry of this country into your hands, O Lord. That your peace, which passeth all understanding, will continue to prevail as we go through the exercise. So that at the end of the day, we, the people of this country, who mention your name day in and day out, will continue to stay in this peace. It's also our prayer in the name of Jesus, that in His Spirit that will exalt itself, principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness in higher places against this process. We bring all of them to the obedience of Christ in the name of Jesus, that we shall triumph. And at the end of the day, we shall say of the truth, it is you, the Lord, who has done this. May your name continue to be praised. In Jesus' name, we all say amen.
Thank you very much for coming. God bless you.
Those are live visuals coming to you from the Electoral Commission's headquarters, where the chairperson has been announcing efforts or the measures they have put in place to make sure that tomorrow's exercise goes on successfully. Mind you, there will be an address to the nation as well from President Akufo-Addo today at 8 p.m. and we'll be here to bring it to you live. We're not sure whether there will be Q&A section. Looks like there will be a Q&A session. Let's go right there and take it.
Conference room before we all leave. Thank you.
The Electoral Commission there, the Electoral Commission chairperson there exiting the auditorium where the press conference was just held. She came, obviously, as you can see, there is no Q&A session, but she came to explain what is going to be done going forward. And you know that the program starts tomorrow. The registration process starts tomorrow. And she is talking about how we all need to join our hands together in spite of our differences to ensure that all eligible Ghanaians get to register. We'll bring you more in our subsequent bulletins right here on the JoyNews channel.